After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke. "Nick, look at me," she said softly. "Lift your head." I hesitated, lingering in that moment, until she released my hands and gently guided my face upward, cradling it with care. Slowly, I raised my eyes, and at last my gaze met hers. "That is the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me," she said softly. "I find it hard to believe you struggle with English when you can speak with such grace. Tell me, where did you learn to express yourself so eloquently?" "A book," I replied, barely above a whisper. "A book," she repeated, surprise lifting her voice slightly. What book could possibly teach someone to speak like that? I waited a moment, watching closely, until I could tell she was just about to speak. Then I answered quietly, "I can't say. It's a secret." "A secret? Why?" she pressed, her tone sharp with curiosity. "I'm sorry, Sylvia," I said softly, "but I really can't tell you." I looked at her then, the distress I felt unmistakable in my eyes. At that, her expression eased, the tension in her face softening as her manner grew gentler. "You will tell me someday." It was a statement, not a question. I hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded in quiet agreement. "Good," she said more softly now, the flash of anger fading from her eyes as they returned to their usual calm. "I need to stretch my legs, and I have to pick something up from my place. I'll only be a minute, there's some juice in the fridge if you'd like some." Matching action to words, she unlocked the door, opened it, stepped through, and gently closed it behind her. As I walked into the kitchen and moved toward the refrigerator, I heard keys turning in the lock of the door to the Marks' apartment. I opened the fridge and took out the juice, giving the container a quick shake while I searched the cupboards for a suitable glass. When I found one, I filled it, then returned the juice to the refrigerator where I had found it. After a moment's consideration, I took the juice out again and poured a second glass for Sylvia. I had just finished closing the refrigerator door when I heard the apartment door open once more. "I brought you some juice as well, in case you wanted something to drink." She stared at the glass for a brief moment, her expression unreadable, then looked up at me and said, "Thank you. That was very thoughtful of you." I smiled slightly and replied, "I always try to be courteous to a lady." Although she had not blushed when I had earlier paid her such extravagant compliments, she did so now. The warmth rising to her cheeks spread upward, and soon her face and hair seemed nearly the same shade. "A lady? A lady, you say?" she asked brightly as she walked over to the counter, picked up the cup of juice, and took a sip. I took the opportunity to drink some juice as well. I was genuinely thirsty and beginning to feel a bit warm. When I finished, I rinsed my glass under warm water and placed it upside down in the sink to dry. Sylvia took far longer to finish her juice. She kept hold of the glass as she drank, taking slow, unhurried sips. All the while, her eyes remained fixed on my face. When she finally emptied the glass, she rinsed it carefully and set it upside down beside the cup I had used. For the moment, she chose not to pursue her question about what it meant to be a lady. Instead, she said, "Let's watch some television for a while. I'm sure you're probably tired of English by now." She gently took my hand and led me back to the couch. "Yes, something a bit more engaging than a textbook to look at would certainly be very nice." She turned her head and gave me a curious look, then faced forward again. There had been nothing but sincerity in the tone of my voice or in the expression on my face. When we reached the couch, she guided me to sit at one end before settling beside me, very close. One of my hands remained gently held in hers. She glanced at the television screen for a brief moment, no more than a minute, before turning her attention back to me and beginning to speak. "Would you like me to turn up the sound?" she asked softly. "No," I replied. "I like listening to you. Even when you're not speaking, there's something pleasant about you." She turned her head away as a gentle blush spread across her face. "Let's just sit like this for a little while," she said quietly. "Sure, whatever you like," I replied, the sincerity in my voice plainly evident. She seemed to sense it immediately, for she shifted even closer to me. Turning slightly, she leaned against my shoulder and asked, "Would you mind rubbing my shoulders for a bit? They're actually quite sore from leaning over and holding that textbook for so long." "I would be happy to," I replied honestly. I turned as far as I could to make it easier to reach her shoulders and straightened my posture as my hands moved into place. Before beginning, I carefully parted her hair and guided it forward over her shoulders, clearing the way so I could help her more comfortably. Her hair was incredibly soft, so soft that it surprised me. I had never imagined hair could feel that way, almost velvety beneath my fingertips. Without quite realizing it, I found myself tracing the gentle coils, lifting them lightly and letting them fall again, simply appreciating the remarkable texture as it slipped through my fingers. I leaned closer, lifting my head toward hers, and whispered softly into her ear, "Your hair is softer than a rabbit's fur." I could run my fingers through it endlessly, savoring its feel without ever growing tired. "I'm glad you like it," she whispered, her voice soft and sincere. "And having you touch it with such care feels very nice. But what I really, truly want is a shoulder massage." I let my fingers slip free from her hair and rested them gently on her shoulders. She released a soft, quiet sigh as my hands met the fabric of her blouse. The material was light and smooth, almost silky to the touch, and through it I could sense the gentle shape of her shoulders. They yielded easily beneath the thin cloth, conveying a quiet warmth and calm. I began to massage her shoulders slowly and carefully, mindful not to apply too much pressure. My movements were calm and deliberate. After a short while, she let out a soft sigh and leaned back slightly, relaxing into the moment. "That feels quite pleasant, truly very soothing." My fingers and thumbs could now sense the subtle structure of her shoulders, the firmness beneath the softness, the quiet strength beneath the surface. It felt as though the fabric of her blouse had faded from notice as my hands continued their careful, considerate movements, mindful of where they rested. She released a long, contented sigh, the kind born of comfort and ease, and leaned back against me a little more, completely relaxed. "I'm also feeling a bit tense along the front of my shoulders, and around my neck," she said, her voice so soft it was nearly lost to the room. "Do you think you could help there as well?" "Anything you ask, I'd be glad to help," I replied, keeping my voice just as quiet. "Anything I ask," she echoed, even more softly than before. I leaned closer until my lips were near her ear and whispered, barely louder than a breath, "Yes, anything you ask. And you'll stop whenever I tell you to," she said, her voice still gentle but carefully clear, as though she needed to be sure I understood. "Of course," I whispered in return. "I would never do anything that might make a lady uncomfortable." "A lady," she murmured, the word drifting from her lips. "I think I would quite like being treated like one." I could feel her entire upper body relax, gradually and completely, until she was as at ease as a person could be without losing her balance. My hands settled naturally at the base of her neck as I continued what she had quietly asked of me. The warmth of her skin beneath the collar of her blouse was noticeable to the touch. I realized, almost absently, that I was growing warm as well, and found myself wishing for a cool breeze, though none came. As I worked my way along her neck, I could feel a few tense spots beneath my fingers and took care to ease them slowly. She let out a quiet, contented sound. That feels much better." "Much, much better," she murmured, her voice warm with relief. She had no hesitation in expressing exactly what she wanted, and after a moment she spoke again, quietly guiding me, "Lower, just a little more." I was aware that moving any further risked crossing a boundary I had no intention of overstepping. Instead, I focused my attention on the areas that were clearly appropriate, working carefully and thoughtfully while making sure to keep a proper distance from anything that might cause discomfort or unease. "Lower, a little more, please." By then, it was clear what she was asking for. Yet her blouse limited how freely I could move, and I hesitated. I did not want to overstep or do anything that might make her uncomfortable. My thoughts raced as I searched for a way to respond to her request with care and consideration, ensuring that whatever I did would remain within the bounds of what she truly wanted. "I can only manage that if you give me a little more room for my hands," I said carefully, choosing my words with intention. "Go ahead," she replied quietly. "I'm far too comfortable to make the effort myself." Her voice carried an unmistakable calm, relaxed, unhurried, and touched with the faintest hint of playful warmth.